Hello everyone. In today's video we will be discussing the infamous anime series, High School of the Dead. What happens when you mash up zombies and anime? Well, this series is exactly as it sounds, delivering plenty of zombies, blood and gore with over-the-top action, and your usual cast of stereotypical high school anime students you would likely find in most other series. Back in the early 2010s, the zombie craze was at its height and inescapable. Almost every piece of media had zombies in it at this time, and especially over here in the US, where we saw TV series like The Walking Dead at the height of its fame, still climbing the ladder of success and receiving heaps of praise left and right. Man, how the mighty have fallen since then. 2013 especially saw a ton of zombie media with films such as the summer blockbuster World War Z and romantic comedy Warm Bodies and plenty of others. And of course, countless video games containing shambling corpses galore, with the Call of Duty series being most prominent, with zombie game type introduced in World of War and in Black Ops, eventually becoming part of its yearly release of the series, helping push the phenomenon of zombies even further into the limelight at the time. So it kind of makes sense that there would be a zombie themed anime, and after having just finished watching Death Note, I was ready to delve even further down the anime rabbit hole. I was fully invested in the zombie craze at the time as well, so High School of the Dead seemed like a no-brainer and a great pick for my next anime to watch. But man, I really grew to hate and resent this anime while watching it the first time through, and I'll get into why later in the video. High School of the Dead is an action horror series with plenty of fan service that started off as a manga from the author Daisuke Sato, published from 2006 all the way through to 2013, made up of 7 volumes. Later it was adapted to an anime by Studio Madhouse the summer of 2010. Studio Madhouse was also responsible for Death Note's adaptation, which I was surprised to discover, but it makes sense because the animation and just quality is just as strong, but the two series couldn't be more different in terms of its narrative quality at least. The plot of the series plays out as you would expect it to. The dead began to rise and Japan was thrown into total chaos as these monsters began terrorizing a high school. Our protagonist Takashi Kimura is forced to kill his best friend when he gets bitten and joins the ranks of the Walking Dead. Vowing to protect Rei, the girlfriend of the man he just executed, they narrowly escape their death trap of a school, only to be greeted with a society that has already fallen. Soon, Takashi and Rei band together with other students on a journey to find their family members and uncover what caused this overwhelming pandemic. Joining them is Saiko, the beautiful president of the Kendo Club, Kota, an otaku with a love for firearms, Saya, the daughter of an influential politician, and Shizuka, their hot school nurse. But will the combined strength of these individuals be enough to conquer this undead apocalypse? So yeah, High School of the Dead is exactly as it sounds, and does not delve much deeper into this concept that is given in the title. Just a bunch of high schoolers trying to survive a zombie apocalypse, pretty much. Whether it's the manga or the anime, they both play out pretty much exactly the same, but with the exception of the endings, where the anime ends on a cliffhanger, and when looking at the manga, sadly, it does continue a bit further than the anime, but is left in an unfinished state. Sadly, the creator, Daisuke Sato, passed away in 2017 and couldn't continue his work on the series, leaving a lot of characters and moments that were being set up left without much payoff. And I feel the manga was just starting to hit its stride as well when it ended. While the manga is unfinished, I still recommend checking it out, as it does a bit more of a continuation, as I said, than what we see in the anime. I really enjoyed the manga and anime, their pacing. They constantly change up the surroundings, and as being on the move in a zombie apocalypse is probably going to be your best bet of survival. So thankfully, they don't just spend the entire time in the high school like the title would suggest. They end up moving to different various locales all over Japan, and in the manga, they even spend some time in a shopping mall, which is probably my favorite setting for a zombie apocalypse. Shout out to one of my favorite games of all time, Dead Rising, which takes influence from the Dawn of the Dead movies. The series is filled with many nods to classic zombie tropes, such as this, with references to zombie legend George Romero, and nods to many other classic zombie tropes that one would come to expect. Also, one of my favorite aspects of the manga is near the end of some of the volumes, they add these extra little diagram pages detailing the weapons showcased, usually just improvised, from everyday items you would find lying around in a high school or where have you, which, it reminds me a ton of one of my favorite books, The Zombie Survival Guide. But, just thinking about it now, man, I was really obsessed with zombies back then. But I have to say, the piece of zombie media I was most obsessed with at the time, as well as many others I'm sure, was the Walking Dead TV series, which handles the concept of a zombie apocalypse with a very gritty, serious tone, which compared to High School of the Dead is much more heavier. And while High School of the Dead attempts at times to be dramatic, The Walking Dead is much more successful at delivering these moments, needless to say. Now, I know these are two very different shows, and it would be absurd to compare the two, but upon my first watch of High School of the Dead, this was my thought process at the time, and I was hoping for a show more along the lines of The Walking Dead. I had also just finished Death Note at the time, which I thought had successfully tackled portraying a serious tone in an anime, so it was just what I was expecting from High School of the Dead. What High School of the Dead offers in terms of its narrative instead is a very campy style of zombie show. This, combined with the most egregious display of fan service I had seen in an anime at the time, just made my first watch of the show just unbearable. I actually only made it to probably around episode 8 or 9, and I gave up watching the series, leaving it unfinished until all these years later returning to it for this video. Looking back, I guess I just really wanted more in-depth characters, and my perspective of anime at the time was still relatively fresh. This was probably my second kind of anime really getting into, so I was pretty blind, and I just had very unrealistic expectations for a show about high schoolers, honestly. Today, I'm able to view the show through a lens of it being similar to a so bad it's good zombie B-movie flick. Watching the English dub really helped sell this idea, making the show even more hilarious. To truly enjoy this anime, you just gotta get some friends together, grab some popcorn, and laugh about how absurd this show can get. It isn't until all these years later that I can appreciate a series like this in retrospect. I find my current enjoyment of High School of the Dead akin to my enjoyment of much like games like Resident Evil 4 that have just crazy over-the-top action set pieces and creative, creepy character designs. I found that nowadays I really enjoy a horror series that isn't so much as just scary, but just absurd and funny. Kind of like the film Cabin in the Woods is a good example. It openly mocks a lot of the tropes found in the horror film genre. But in terms of High School of the Dead, if you enjoy crappy English dubs as well, that'll help a lot in your enjoyment. Because a lot of the dialogue in the English dub is just dumb as shit. Like, so bafflingly bad, where it comes back around to just being funny as shit. Like, it's a good representation of how I enjoy this anime. While this series is only for a select few, and I know this from experience, it can still be a great time if you go into it with an open mind and a love for cheesy horror that doesn't take itself too seriously. I unexpectedly really enjoyed revisiting this series for this video, and hey, maybe we'll finally get a season 2 one day. Also, I just want to say thanks for checking out the video, and appreciate your time. And if you have any thoughts or comments about the video, leave them in the comments. Love to hear them. Alright, thank you.